All right. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. So, this is session 4 now for our class here, and just a quick overview what I would, inshallah, hope to try to accomplish today. So, still the main, you could say, meat and potatoes that we want to do is the Risala of Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani. So we still want to be able to, be able to work on that and read that. But I have a couple of extra documents that are meant to be things that we can use for things that we can use to help, just sort things out for us. They're meant to be sort of like practice items. So if we, let's see, let me pull up here our Acrobat. So if we go and take a look at our Adobe Acrobat documents, you're going to notice that I gave you, so Rami, I gave you the most, just to make sure the most updated one of what we're working off of from the Risala. But the other documents I gave you should be one at the top that says al-Qā'imah, al-Qā'imatul Ula li'ashrati af'al. So that's the first list of 10 verbs. And then the other one at the top will say ظرف الزمان وظرف المكان, right? The adverbs of time and place. So those are 2 extra documents that I have given you guys to work with today. Just as a note, particularly for the first document that I gave you, al-Qā'imatul Ula li'ashrati af'al, right? The first list of 10 verbs. I just go over really quickly like how to use these documents and kind of what they mean. So the word qa'ima means list in the Arabic language, right? So qa'ima means list. And I'm going to come over to the whiteboard here. Just so we can know that when you go home or whatnot, like how to use this document and kind of what does it mean. So as I said, the word qa'ima means a list. Qa'ima. And the word ula, what is the word ula again? First. And why is it ula versus awwal? Feminine. Right. So the first heading, al-Qā'imatul Ula li'ashrati af'alin, right, is the first list for 10 verbs, or the list, the first list for 10 verbs. Ashrati af'al. So you'll notice in the text right underneath that, we have the af'al of ata, amra, anisa, ja'a, hadda, hafada, hamida, da'a, raja, and rassakha. So rassakha bunya ala fa'ala. So there's a shadda في الحرف الواسط. في الحرف الواسطة مشددة. All right. Then القائمات الأولى لعشرة أسماء, as you can guess, is going to be what? A list, the first list that is going to give us what? عشرة أسماء. It's going to give us 10 nouns to work with. So we have الأسماء هي نعمة أرحام حكمة رفق رزق فضل عظيم آثار صنعة وألسنة. And then what I've done to help us, right, and the purpose is what? These are 10 verbs and 10 nouns that are in the Risala. So I've pulled out just 10. There's obviously more than 10 in there, but I've wanted to make things easy to start, to have something to work on this week. So I took these 10 verbs and these 10 nouns, and I جعلت جمل الأمثلة الماضية الأولى. I have made some example sentences that are in the past tense case, al-madiyya al-ula. So these are the first set of example sentences that we have, and we'll read over these in a minute. So I won't go into it, but you will notice that I have given some footnotes. So for those of you that have the paper printout, you'll notice, let's just go to the first footnote. So the first footnote is for the verb ata. So I've put something there to help you understand the meaning of ata contextually. And that context may be similar or may be different in some way that it's used in the Risala. This is to help expand your understanding of the word. And I've tried to give most of the amthal, I've tried to give most of the examples here, either based on an ayah from the Quran or from a hadith from the Prophet ﷺ. So just if we look at the first one, هل أتى على الإنسان حين من الدهر لم يكن شيئا مذكورا. This example, the footnote relating to the verb ata, is giving you some information about the verb. As you'll note, the second word in the ayah, hal ata. So if you want to know what does it mean, I'm purposely not giving you the English definition. I'm directing you to go to the Quran, and it's fine. If you use your English translation, no problem. But also, you get the benefit of reading some Quran. So you will go and see that, Ibn Abi Zayd, rahimahullah, is using the word ata in his risala, and this is a verb that we also find in the Quran. Allah Ta'ala says, hal ata ala al-insani ila akhiriha, right, to the end of it. And then you'll see at the end of the footnote, it says Surah al-Insan, and then I've purposely put in the numerals there in Arabic, right? So it has the slash, which is a 1, and then a dot. The dot on the line is a period. The dot in the middle is a 0, right? So in Arabic, our numbers are going to be, like this, 1 and 2 and 3, dot, 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 right? This, actually, that's probably a bad example. Dot, dot, dot. And then if you wanted to make 9 and then 10 is like this. It would be a 1 and a 0. The 0 represented by a dot, sort of like in the middle between the top and the bottom. The other interesting thing about Arabic is that even though it is written from right to left, numbers are written, they're written right to left, except that when they go over 10, or once they get to 10 and over, they're then written left to right. So if we wanted to write the year 2024, we write it left to right. Just a little note. So the other thing is, you'll notice on your PDF the kind of color, because this unfortunately is a black and white printer, it's a little bit grayed out. If you go to the PDF, and I'll put I think I put a link in the Discord. If not, I'll double check. You can download this PDF, and there's a hyperlink. So if you just click on the link, the blue text that'll be there, like when you look on the PDF on your computer, the links, there'll be some color in there. You can actually, that's a clickable link that'll take you to a web page that will give you the verse and its translation. Likewise, let's see, if we go to, if you go to the 8th, right, if you go to the 8th footnote, which is going to be in the 5th example. So in the 5th sentence on the 2nd page, number 5, it begins with hadda al-falahu, right? When you get to the word al-haqal, it has a footnote. It's footnote number 8. You'll notice that I give you a statement. It's from a hadith. So it says, kunna akthara al-ansari حقلا. And so I'm giving you just a portion of it. And I say what? Min Sahih Muslim. So it's from the hadith collection of Sahih Muslim. Hadith number 1547. And again, that'll be a hyperlink that'll take you to a page that will have the hadith both in the Arabic and the English. So just as when you can look it up on your own, but if you want to save some time, you can just download the PDF, and all of those links will be hyperlinks that'll take you to something that will explain and demonstrate where you can see the word, at least in context. And if you don't understand every single word, the English translation is right there, right? So those are designed. And so we'll read over this in just a few minutes, but that's kind of how this document works. The other document that I gave you, the Dharf al-Zaman wal-Makan, we're going to go over. This is really meant to be kind of like supplementary. And so you'll actually see in the other document, the one about the Qa'imat al-Ula, the Af'al and Asma, the list of the verbs and the nouns. There will be a couple of footnotes in there. They'll say at-tari', right? Go and look at the waraqa. Go look at the handout for Dharf Zaman and Makan, right? This is just to be like, 3 pages, barely 3 pages, right? It's just a short little overview of 2 kinds of adverbs in the Arabic language, adverbs of time and place. They give you a basic little summary of what those are, and then I give you like 10 common adverbs of time, 10 common adverbs of place, and then I have a little note at the end about a particularly tricky adverb, the word inda, that can actually both be a dharf zaman and makan wa mudaf. And that the word inda, depending on how it's used in the sentence, can either be an adverb of either time or place, and also can simultaneously be a first term of an idafa. And so we will go over that much later in detail, right, as our learning progresses. But I just wanted to at least give you some common ones that you may have heard of, like al-an, al-yom, right, ghaddan, right, tomorrow, today, ahyanan, ba'd al-ahyan, these kinds of statements, right? These are dhuruf az-zaman. These are things that are adverbs of time. And then we have things like fawqa, tahta, amama, khalfa, above, below, in front, and behind, right? These are the adverbs of place. And so you can just kind of reference this as needed. So before we begin, let me just grab my copy here, and then maybe just do a quick little round to see how everybody is feeling. My copy here. There we go. We'll start with ruh. Was there anything that you started with, or rather that you worked on this week? Anything that you had a question about? All right. Rob?
Not a particular checkpoint.
All right. Rami? All right. Ishaq? All right. Pop quiz. Daoud. All right. All right. So, what we're going to do is we're going to read through our new list of example sentences that I gave you for the 10 verbs and 10 nouns. We'll work through that, and then we'll actually read the risala, right? So we're just going to go down the list. We'll go down the row here. We'll start with ruh. We're going to go to the section on page 1, Jumalul Amthara, right? We're going to go to, right, the example sentences, and let's start with reading the first one that begins with ata. musafi,
musafiruna, ni'matan,
ni'ma,
ni'ma,
right? Ni'ma, and then what's the ending? What's the i'rab?
ni'matan,
Yes, why?
because it is the object of ata. Because musarifuna is the subject.
Yep.
Min Allahi ba'da sabrin tawilin.
So, ata al-musafiruna. So the word is the jama' of musafir. Musafir. Musafir is what we call an ism fa'il. The kind of word that musafir is ism fa'il. So it's obviously an ism, it's a noun, and it is fa'il. It's the one alladhi qama ala fi'l. It's the one that's doing the action. So what's the action? The action, I don't mean ata in this case, right? I mean action in this case of the verb that this noun is constructed upon is safara. So safara as a verb, to make it ism fa'il, becomes mu. It's built on the form of mufa'il. Mufa'il. That's the form that it's built on. Then you also have similarly, you have mufa'al. Mufa'al. So, ism fa'il, it's the one, as we said, that is going to be doing our action. And therefore, it is the active voice. But the mufa'al, or in this case, musafar, let me answer this person's question. So the active means the one that's doing. So it's the person that is traveling, right? So in fiqh, some of us have studied the fiqh of the musafir, right? So you know like when to combine your prayers, when to shorten your prayers, right? And so in this case, right, it's the what ata al-musafiruna, not musafirina. So that it is musafiruna, it's the plural of musafir, then it means that it's the subject, as Ruh said. So ata then is going to be impacting something else. Rather, it is something that is describing the subject and what they're doing, but they are not receiving the action of ata. Right? So ism fa'il is always going to be in the active case. On this particular wazn of mufa'il, you can take any verb that is on the form of fa'ala, like we have safara, right? We have our three root letters, but after the first letter we have an alif, right? That gives us our form. The form is fa'ala. If we want to make the ism fa'il of that, we make what? Mufa'il. And then also if we want to make the ism maf'ul, which we'll talk about in a minute, then we make it mufa'al. And then we have also the masdar, right? We have the verbal noun of mufa'ala. So for instance, right, let's have our form of, here's our base verb, fa'ala. That is our, what we call our wazn. Then we're going to go to our ism fa'il, and so that's going to give us mufa'il. Then we're going to go to our ism maf'ul, that's going to give us mufa'al. See, the only difference between the fa'il of the ism fa'il and the ism maf'ul is that one has a kasra on the ayn and one has a fatha on the ayn. So mufa'il, mufa'al, right? And so, as we said, this one is thinking like A for active and P for passive. And just so that, I don't want to introduce a lot of terminology, but this week we'll introduce 2 new Arabic grammatical terms. So what is the term in Arabic for the active voice? We call this ma'lum, something that's known, right? Because if you look at the 3 letters, ayn, lam, and mim, right, it's related to knowledge or knowing, right? So we want to say something is it's what? The sigha, or the voice of ma'lum. And then likewise, if we want to do the passive, we call this majhul. Ma'lum, majhul. What are the 3 root letters of majhul that maybe we can relate to? What are the huruf asliya for majhul? What are the root letters for it? Not the added, not the huruf za'ida, but what are the huruf majhul for both ma'lum and majhul? So here's our huruf asliya for ma'lum is going to be what? Good. And for majhul? Great. What's a word for the second one in particular? Jeen, ha, lam. What's a word that contains this 3 letters that I'm pretty sure most of us know? Jahil. What's another one? Jahiliya. Right? If a person is jahil, what are they? They're ignorant. But ignorant, we're used to hearing the word ignorant as madhmum, as blameworthy, as a negative criticism, right? Anta jahil, right? Ya himar, anta jahil, right? And of course, the Quran calls people jahilun as a negative critique. But that meaning is contextual. Jahil foundationally means to not know, something that is unknown, an absence of knowledge. So, in an active voice, is the fa'il known or not known? Right, let's look at our sentence. Ata al-musafiruna, right, ni'matan بعد صبر طويل. وأتى مسافرون نعمة من الله بعد صبر طويل. Okay, we said that the subject of this sentence is who? The musafirun, the travelers. So, if they're the subject, are they known or not known? I'm not saying if you know what their names are, but I mean, we can identify, they're mentioned, right? I'm not saying that their name, you know their names, but what it means is it's clearly identifiable in the sentence who is doing the action. In our case, in this case, أتى المسافرون نعمة من الله بعد صبر طويل. Then we can say, it's the musafirun. They're known. They're the ones that are going to receive this ni'mah. Therefore, they are ma'loom. It is fa'il ma'loom. They're known. And therefore, it's an active, right? But if we don't know who it is, and I don't mean don't know, like I'm just not, no, but I mean like it's not there in the sentence, then you don't know who, you know the action that's being done, but you don't know who is doing the action because they're not mentioned in the sentence, then this is what we call majhul. Fa'il majhul. It's an unknown actor. As we said last time, when you have an active voice, the emphasis is placed on the fa'il, and when you have a passive voice, it is placed on the fi'il. Meaning, the active voice puts emphasis on the doer of the act, the passive voice puts emphasis on the action being done. Right? That's, in a nutshell, an important differentiation. And so, that is what we mean by ism maf'ul and ism fa'il. Ism fa'il, you have musafir. It is an active person doing the act. Even though it's a noun constructed to where they are actively doing the act, which in this case is the act of traveling. Right? And so, if the traveler is the musafir, what is the musafar? If the musafir وهو الفاعل وهو معلوم, if the traveler is known, وهو قام على الفعل سافر, and he is the one that is doing the act of traveling, and that's the active. فللمجهول, so for the passive voice, المسافر, ما هو المسافر? What is the musafar? Okay, I'll help you out. The musafar is the one that has received the action of traveling or a destination. Because when you travel from Los Angeles to Tokyo, you arrive in Tokyo, Tokyo receives your action of traveling. You get it? You look like you're up against the ropes right now. Okay, all right, right? So this is important because you can construct many different words in the Arabic based upon this ism fa'il and ism maf'ul. And so I'll give you a simple example to drive it home, and then we'll move on. Dhakar is something associated with masculinity. If we add our meme to that and our shadda, what do we get? Mudhakkar, not mudhakkir. Why is masculine mudhakkar and not mudhakkir? Because the being manly is already done. You have been rendered a man. Right? you don't have to keep every moment and step of your life, right? I'm a man. It's a man's world, right? You don't have to every single moment. Allah Ta'ala made you a man. And therefore that state of being a man is fixed, right? So you do things as a man. You understand it? Even in English, you do it as a man. It even suggests a kind of passivity to it. So that's why when we just, like you will find, right, this word, just like its counterpart, I don't even have to write in the marks for you, because you know that the form is going to be what? These two. One of them is this, and one of them is that. One of them is going to be with a kasra, and one of them is going to be with a fatha on the middle root letter. Not the middle letter in the word, but we have three huruf asliya. Fa, ayn, lam. Or in this case, dhal, kaf, ra. If we have our verb dhakkara, right? Dhakkara means to do man stuff, right? And so the mudhakkir is the one that makes something manly, right? Which you could say like, Allah made us a man, or the father raised his son to be a man. I guess if you want to think of it like that, then that could be our base verb of dhakkara. So to make our ism fa'il and our ism maf'ul, we're going to have what? Mudhakkir and mudhakkar. Depending on the verb and its root and its meaning, you may, for instance, have, in the case of dhakkara, the mudhakkir, not a lot, or a mudhakkir, if you take the meaning of reminding, remembering, then the Prophet ﷺ is the mudhakkir, right? فَذَكِّرْ فَإِن نَفَعَتِ الذِّكْرَى. Allah Ta'ala gives the Prophet ﷺ the command in the Quran, remind the people, right? And therefore he is the mudhakkir. When we are making salawat upon the Prophet, or when we follow his sunnah and his advice, then we are mudhakkarun. We have been reminded. But to be a reminder is a mudhakkir, to be reminded is a mudhakkar. Or in another context, if we're talking about grammar, the mudhakkar is the masculine and the mu'annath is the feminine. Right? So depending on the word itself, it may or may not have, they may not use both commonly. Like, so for instance, darasa is what? To study. What's the teacher? Mudarris, with the kasra, because what does the teacher do? Not what is done, but what does the teacher do? He or she teaches, right? They do the act of teaching, right? So that's why they are a mudarris. The mudarras is that which has been taught, right? So another way of saying dars would say the mudarras, or you guys in this case, like ana al-mudarras wa antum al-mudarrasun. I'm the teacher and you guys have been instructed. Yes, you had a question.
So in the passive voice, the passive voice being the one who's receiving the action. The passive voice is the one that takes fatah on
the second, yep. So like this one, right? It's the the second root letter will take the, yes,
In the active voice, the one doing the action
takes the
takes
kasra. Right. So if we take allama, bunya ala fa'ala, we have allama, we have the muallim and the muallam. We have the teacher and that which was taught. Muallim, muallam, mudarris, mudarras. Again, while technically these are true, muallam and mudarras are going to be very seldomly used. They're just not, it's a little bit weird.
So you say that which is taught and that which is taught. Is that in regards to the student who was taught or the lesson that was taught?
It doesn't matter. The ism maf'ul is describing an action that has occurred to a thing because it's ism, right? So this is the important about ism maf'ul. So ism is the most important thing. So that could be anything. So anything could be anything could have been, I'll write this out. Anything could have been the recipient of the action, which has been completed. Right? This will help make it how does the passive differ than the active, right? In the active voice, the action is ongoing. Right? It's ongoing. Huwa mudarris. And here's the interesting thing. If you say, Sheikh Fulan kana mudarrisan, walakin tawafa mundu sanawat kathira. So-and-so was a teacher, but he passed away many years ago. Even though he's passed away and he's dead and he's not teaching anybody anymore, when he dies, do we call him mudarras? Or does he still stay a mudarris? Right, still stays mudarris. Right, we just don't become passive because we die, right? But the act of generally what he was about during his lifetime was an ongoing act, an activity of teaching. Whereas something that is maf'ul, something that is already done, then alive or dead, it doesn't matter, and anything. It could be, because again, you asked, could it be, you said, could it be what, a lesson? What was the other word you asked? A student. So let's break this down. A noun can be what of three things? We can have a person, a place, or a thing. So let's just call this like a city, right? So to answer your question, because it's ism maf'ul, well, it can be any of these three, right? Asma. It can be any of these three things. So ism maf'ul can be a Medina, it can be a taliba, or it can be a dars. It doesn't matter. It just has to be an ism, right? But hopefully that will kind of summarize. Okay, so in our sentence, ata al-musrifuna, al-musarifuna. So al-musarif, we said, is what? Ism fa'al. It's the active, it's the subject. It's also the plural. The important thing, the last thing I'll write about this form, the mufa'il form, this is going to be jama' sahih. I mean, it's going to be a sound plural. Sound plurals are what? Una, ina, depending on its function in the sentence. Una, it is the fa'il, right? it's the subject, it's doing the action. And the ina, it's either going to be majroor, right? It means it's being possessed in some way, right? Or it is the maf'ul bihi, right? It's going to be the direct object. It's receiving the action, right? So una, ina. So this form, mufa'il, as well as the form so we have mufa'il and mufa'il, right? Both of those will take a sound plural form. So it's very easy to construct a plural. So if you have musafir, musafirun, musafirin. Mudarris, mudarrisun, mudarrisin. So in our sentence, ata, who is receiving the action? Or rather, what is receiving the action? No, they're doing the action. What in the sentence is receiving the action? Ni'mah. Ni'mah is what? What is the meaning of ni'mah? Hey, bless. And let's try to be precise. Ni'mah means a blessing, right? Because there is no definitiveness to this, right? So we have the word ni'mah. What are two simple ways that this word could be changed to a definite noun versus an indefinite noun? Step one would be what? Add the alif lam, right? And then step two would be what? Well, that automatically happens. So this becomes this as soon as we add the alif and lam, right? But what's another way we can impact that word to make it also definite versus indefinite? We've already used up one option, which is the alif and lam. What's another one? Well, but what kind of idafa? It'd have to be a definite idafa, right? Because you can have an idafa that's also indefinite. So you could say, right? Ni'matu muslimin, right? A blessing of a Muslim. I mean, it kind of sounds odd, but grammatically it's true, right? If we wanted to make it part of an idafa, right? So this would not be so, right? What we would have to do is say that. Ni'matu al-Muslim, which basically takes us back to number one, right? So this one, not really so. What is the second way that we can make an indefinite noun definite? I'm sure you're not, well, not just a name, but a proper noun. But we need to add a pronoun, right? So if we said, for instance, ni'matuhu. What's who? If we were to take ni'matuhu and break it down into its components, what would it be? It would be ni'mah plus what other, what's the full pronoun of who? Aha. Right? So when we want to concatenate these together, right, we don't say ni'matu huwa, we say ni'matu hu. Right? Once we say ni'matu hu, now his blessing, do we know whose blessing it is? Yes or no? We know it's his, we just don't know who he is, unless he is identified in the sentence. Just because we don't know, because now this is an interesting situation. This is both ma'loom and majhul from different perspectives. If I say ni'matuhu, I have now grammatically, right, nahwiyan, it is ta'rif. Linguistically, it is definite. But ma'nawiyan majhul, right? From a perspective of meaning, I don't know whose blessing it is, unless there's some other context in the sentence that tells me whose blessing it is. So the quick, simple answer is, if I want to change a infinitive or an indefinite noun to a definite noun, I can either add alif and lam, or I can add a pronoun suffix to it. And of course, it could be all of the different programs. Kitabuhu, kitabuha, kitabi, kitabukum, kitabuna, right? It could be, his book, my book, our book, your book, their book, blah, blah, blah. As long as it is a pronoun, then it goes from being grammatically indefinite to definite. But in terms of the meaning, I don't know whose book it is unless it is clearly stated in the sentence, right? So that's how definitiveness works in the Arabic. Main two things is you're going to either add alif and lam or add a pronoun. Now, we haven't gotten to, and I won't do this week, but I'll just a quick note. There are some nouns that will take all three cases, in, and an, when they are indefinite, and that's what we call tanween, right? So ni'matun, ni'matin, and ni'matan, depending on its function in the sentence. However, there are some words that will only take one. Some that will only take one vowel, though they are still indefinite. And this is going to get into things that are like mamnu' min as-sarf, things that don't have they don't change or they're fixed. And we'll get into that later, right? But for right now, most of the nouns that you're going to be using will be able to take all three cases for tanween in their indefiniteness, and then one vowel for their definiteness. Okay, so the rest of the sentence, right? Ni'matan min Allahi. Why is it min Allahi and not min Allahu? What kind of harf? Jar, right. It's the harf, or you can do even in English, right? It's the harf of possession, what we call harf jar, jim, ra, shadda, right? That's the harf. So it becomes majroor. And then what? Ba'ada. So in your other little handout of the dharf, zaman, and makan, we have our word ba'ada. Ba'ada. Look at the last letter and its vowel. The dal has a fatha, right? The dal in أتى المسافرون نعمة من الله. بعد, what? After بعد صبر, after some sabr, بعد. Okay, this kind of word, the kind of word it is what we call a ظرف زمان. Zaman is what? Yeah, zaman. Another similar word is waqt. You guys may be familiar with waqt. So zaman bima'na waqt. It's the general meaning of zaman. But in grammar, we don't call it dharf al-waqt. Call it dharf zaman. So a dharf is in English what we call an adverb. specifically an adverb of time in our case here. This is an adverb of time. And one of the indications is that it has the fatha on it. This fatha, in the case of ba'ada, is not indicating action per se. We've already illustrated in our sentence, Ata al-musafiruna ni'matan min Allahi ba'da صبر طويل. So we've already indicated this is the maf'ul bihi, or what we call the direct object, right? So we've already indicated ni'matan is receiving the action of ata. So ba'da here is not action, but it is denoting an occurrence of something in a particular point in time, right? So you have dhuruf makan and dhuruf zaman. So as you can guess, the adverb of time is indicating something, or rather, when is the action occurring. So if somebody wants to look on our little handout on our dhuruf of zaman and makan, under adverb of time, Ishaq, just read the blurb right under adverbs of time. So adverbs of time indicate?
Adverbs of time indicate when the action occurs. To answer the question, mata, these words are often in the accusative case.
Mansub,
indirectly modifying a verb, though they may take other endings depending on the grammatical role. In other words, following a preposition. Here are some common adverbs of time.
Okay, so great. So to answer your question or you might have had, what is dharf zaman? What is an adverb of time? It's going to indicate when the action occurs. So if you kind of think about even in English, we have our word add and a verb. Verb is all about what? Action. Add, what could add be short for? Like an adjective. So it's going to describe action, but in this case, it's going to describe rather than zaman, when, for dharf zaman, when the action occurs. So it's going to give us a descriptive account of the occurrence of the action in time. And it's the exact same thing for dharf makan. Where does the action take place? So for instance, I could say, أنا لقيت الرامي خلف المسجد منذ 3 أيام. I met Rami behind the masjid 3 days ago. Khalfa, behind, right? What is that dharf makan doing? It's giving me, right, it's going to describe the action, in this case, meeting, and it's going to tell me where did the action occur of meeting? The meeting took place behind the masjid. So, khalfa, and it's going to have that same fatha, right? So in our sentence here, right, أتى المسافرون نعمة من الله بعد صبر طويل. صبر طويل. Also, with sometimes the dhuruf with adverbs, they can also impact the following word to be majroor. So in our sentence, ba'ada, it says what? Ba'ada sabar. If this is majroor and there's no alif and lam, if it's infinitive, then what are we going to get on sabr? What kind of tanween? If it's majroor and it takes tanween, what tanween do we get? Sabarin, right? Because there's no alif and lam. So it's indefinite. It's not ba'ada sabar. It's what? Ba'ada sabar or ba'ada sabarin. Ba'ada sabarin. But not just any kind of sabar. What is the description given for our sabar? Tawil. These now must be in agreement. So if this is sabarin, what do we get? Not tawilin, but tawilin. Tawilin. Right, so the accents are important. Tawil, right? Tawil, tawilin. Not tawilin, because it's not a sound plural, right? Tawilin, short in terms of its length, but the in sound. So these have to be in agreement. This, here's the thing in Arabic. What kind of word are these two words? Sabr and tawil. What kind of words are they? What are the three words we have in Arabic? Ism, fi'l, harf. We only have three major categories of words. Are either of these a fi'l? Are either of these a harf? So the only thing that remains is that they are? Right, they're both ism. However, this one is an ism, but this one, though it is an ism, it's not an idafa, because otherwise it would be sabari tawilin. Sabari, even though this is wrong, right? But just for purposes, this would be idafa, and an indefinite idafa, because we have here, right, one vowel on our kasra, and then here we have two. This is what would make, right, an idafa. But we have, in this case, sabarin tawilin. If we have agreement, then what does this mean? What is this word doing to the first word? What is tawil doing to sabr? What's the function of tawil in the sentence? What is it doing to sabr? First off, what's the meaning of tawil? Long. Long. Right? Like you say, when a person is tall, like in Arabic, you say, wow, he's really long. No, you say he's tall in English, right? But in Arabic, we say huwa tawil. It can mean tall, but it can also mean extended, lengthy, long, right? So tawil is long. So what is tawil doing to sabr in the sentence? It's describing it. What do we call that? And what do we call that in Arabic? What do we talk about? Allah, what? Right, so what's the singular? Sifa. Sifa. So, a sifa is a kind of noun. Right? Because again, we only got three types of words. Right? هناك ثلاث أنواع كلمات بالعربية. We only have 3 kinds of words in Arabic. Ism, fi'l, harf. Every single word, one way or another, has to be put in one of those big 3 containers. Now, each of those containers has their own little subdivisions. So, sifats and dhuruf and blah, blah, blah. Those are all going to be in the ism category, right? Adverbs and adjectives and idafa, conjunctions, like they're all just special kinds of nouns. So, if this is not functioning as an idafa, but is functioning as an adjective, then they must be in agreement in what? Their plurality and their gender. So if this is sabr and it's singular, then tawil has got to be also singular. If this is masculine, this must also be masculine. Right? So they have to be in agreement. So, بعد صبر طويل, بعد صبر طويل, right? So what? The travelers received the ni'mah of Allah after a long stint of having had great patience. And again, if you want to know more about the word ata and then more about the word tawil, you can look up those footnotes that I gave you. Okay. Yes, sir.
Along with definitiveness also be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So whether they are also indefinite or right. So yeah. If this has tanween because it's indefinite and this functions as its adjective, then it's got to match up in plurality, gender, and definitiveness or lack thereof. Okay. Rob, let's go to sentence number 2, beginning with amara.
Amara al-Qā'adu
Qa'id,
qa'id.
right? Qa'idu, right?
Amara al-Qā'idu al-Janud
Al-Junud,
al-Junud بحماية
very good.
بحماية الوطن أنا الحروب
Harb. Good. Amara, this is our fi'l. Not qa'id, but qa'id. Al-Qa'id, al-Junuda, بحماية الأرحام أثناء الحرب. Okay. Amara. What's the meaning of amara? To command. What is a qa'id? Like a commander or leader. So amara al-qa'id, what is going to be the i'rab on the dal of qa'id? Who man qama bi fi'li amara? Who's doing the act of amara? The commander. So if the commander is doing the action, that he is the fa'il, he is the subject. If he's the subject, what is going to be the i'rab? What's going to be the voweling for qa'id? Right, but what's the vowel? We got 3 vowels. Dhamma, very good. So now we got what do we got? Amara al-Qa'idu. Amara al-Qa'idu. Now, this word, junud, al-junud, but junud, what's junud? Yes. And are they doing the commanding too, or are they receiving the action of being commanded? So what's their i'rab on the dal? Al-junuda. B. B is what kind of word in Arabic? Harf jar. So the word here, himaya, right? The word himayatun, in this case is going to be what? Because of the harf jar. Harf jar makes a word majroor. What is the va? Right, kasra. So it's going to be what? B. Good. Be himayati. Good.
I have a question. Taking the Kesra, is there any particular reason other than that's just what it takes?
Yes. That is the bina. That's the construction of that particular masdar. So there is a masdar of fi'al or fi'ala. To answer your question, right? So you have the word himayatun. Its form is fi'alatun. Fi'alatun. However, this is a common form for verbs that have a weak ending. So like hima and da'a and raja, like hima, da'a to call, raja to hope for, because they all have this weak vowel as their last letter. When we make a masdar from them, then we have what, like the word ra'a and what's another one? Yeah, ana. So ana and ra'a. We get ri ayatun. And from ana we get inayatun. Ra'a means to shepherd. So ri'ayatun means to like give care, to give like somebody in a hospital or like in an old folks home or taking care of a baby. We call this ri'aya, ri'ayatun. Ana, right, means to have concern for, right? So inaya is concern or care, right? So this is a common form of fi'ala, fi'alatun, but specifically for those verbs that have a weak letter on the end. So, himaya. If we look at our notes here, let's see, we got footnote number 5. Dawood, what do we have for footnote number 5? I know, I should have bumped up the font on this one. It's so small. Yeah, this is not made for the geriatric crowd, man. Ya'ni. Now come on, this is an Arabic class, so there's one word y'all got to know is ya'ni, because that's all, that's in everything. If you can fall back, like in Urdu, it's acha, and in Arabic, it's ya'ni. If that's all you know, you can live for like 100 years in Pakistan or in the Arab world. All you need to know is ya'ni and acha.
What that mean?
It doesn't matter. It's just you can get by with it. You can use it for anything, man. It's like a Swiss Army knife, you know? Somebody says something to you, yani, or if you're in Pakistan, like somebody says something, acha, acha. That's it. It's the Swiss Army knife for everything that you need. So, But the real meaning of ya'ni, so Arabs use ya'ni like, well, well, I kind of mean, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? That's how we use it in English. But the meaning comes from, right, a'na or ana, which means to literally have meaning. That's what we call meaning is what? Ma'na, right? Meaning. So when we say ya'ni, like when you'll see a book of grammar or maybe a book of tafsir and the scholar he'll explain something, he'll give you the word and say, ya'ni, dot, dot, dot. It means dot, dot, dot. So in our case, the word himaya, ya'ni means what? Hifth, hifdun, aw, hirasa, hirasa. Now here is an example. The word hirasa, bunya anafs al-bina, what? Of himaya. So even though hirasa doesn't have a weak letter in it, it actually uses the same form. So the meaning of himaya is ya'ni what hifth. What's hifth? To protect and to preserve. Aw hirasa. What's hirasa? In the Maliki madhab, we have no problem with the dog in terms of the saliva, but we don't like it in the house. But we can have a dog and use it for what?
Hunting.
Or protection guarding the house. We call this what? Hirasa. So himaya, ta'ani, if you want to be real technical because it's feminine, ta'ani bima'na hirasa aw hifz. So that's the meaning of it. So أمر القاعدة الجنود بحماية, right? Not بحماية. So he's not commanding them to do just protection in general. Rather, he's commanding them to do perhaps something a bit more specific. So it becomes himayati, and then this whole thing becomes what? Bihimayatil arham. Yes, this becomes idafa. And therefore, technically, what is the first term of the idafa? Very good, mudaf. Right, mudaf. And then all of the other subsequent terms in the idafa become what? Right. Right. Mudaf ilayhi. So we have harf jar, mudaf, wa mudaf ilay. So bihikaya, bihimayatil arhami. The first term of the idafa, it can take, depending on its function, an, in, and un. Or sorry, not. Doesn't take tanween. Sorry, it can take a, e, and u. That is the function. So the first term of an idafa, if it's the kind of word that can take all three, it can take, right? It can be the subject, it can be possessed, it can also be a direct object. So the first term of idafa can either be a, e, u. The second or subsequent terms of the idafa always are majroor. They always take kasra. The only difference is, are they a definite or indefinite idafa? If they're indefinite, they will take the kasratan, they'll take the in sound. Or if they are like in this case, alif and lam, they're ta'rif, they're definite, they will take one kasra. So, bi himayatil arhami. What's arham? يا أيها الذين آمنوا يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منها رجالا كثيرا ونساء. Right? And what فاتقوا الله. Allah says what? فاتقوا الله. Right? والأرحام تساءلون بالأرحام. Right? That you have fear and reverence of Allah and the wombs that bore you. Right? Arham. جمع ruhum. And of course we know it is related to the masdar of rahma. So ruhum is a womb, arham, wombs. Wombs. Plural. Athna'a, we just did this. This is like our word ba'ada. What kind of word was ba'ada? Nope. It was dharf zaman. Right? So it was, more importantly, ba'da was dharf zaman. Right? Likewise, this also is going to be zaman, dharf zaman, because it is athna'a. What's the meaning of athna'a? Athna'a. During. So it's talking about a point in time. Right? Athna'a. We also said that what? Along with the dhuruf, al-makan wa zaman, that the word after it would be what? Majroor. So this, what's going to be the i'rab on harb? Right, B. All right, let's read our sentence again from top to bottom. أمر القاعد الجنود بحماية الأرحام أثناء الحرب. The commander instructed, or the leader commanded the army with the protection of the wombs during the war. Hey, look, man, I'm just trying to use what's available, and so I had to come up with some vocabulary out of the Risala and like reconstruct. So it's a little bit Frankenstein, okay? But you got to work with me here. This is a little bit Frank, man. It's all about the grammar, baby. That's all it is. It's all about the grammar, right? So, أمر القاعد هو الفاعل والجنود المفعول به. بحماية الأرحام. This is in some ways, what were they instructed with? This becomes almost kind of like a sort of second, almost like a second indirect object. Right? They were directly commanded. What were they commanded with? Almost like a sort of maf'ul lahu, like a kind of indirect object. What? Bi himayat al-arhami athna al-harb. What's the word harb here? I mean, you're married to a harbi. What's harb?
War.
Yeah, there you go. Yes. Harb means war. Right? So there we go. The commander gave that word to what? Al-Junud. And same thing, we have plenty of footnotes there. All right, Rami. Yes, sir.
Can you go over one more time why al-Harabi takes kasra?
Right. Okay. So when you have many cases of the when you have dharf zaman, like ba'ada, or in this case athna'a, ba'ada, the dharf makan is going to indicate where in time is the action occurring, right? And therefore, it can also function as a kind of mudaf. It can function like the first term of an idafa. So in our case, right, B himayati al-ar. You know what? That sentence is weird. Let's let's do بحماية الأطفال. أطفال is children. So he commanded them to protect the children. It's just Arham was in the Risala, but what بحماية الأطفال أثناء الحرب. So these are going, this is our ظرف مكان, but it is also مضاف. And so this is going to be what? This is going to be مضاف إليه.
I'm not clear as to why that is mudaf.
Okay.
I understand. I hear loud.
No, okay.
Contained.
So let's go back to this. I always find this helps. Right? We got, here's our three big containers. What kind of words do we have in Arabic? Great. A dharf, whether zaman or makan, whether time or place. Is it a harf? Is it a fi'l? Is it an ism? It's got to be if it ain't either one of these. There ain't no other category to go. So if it is an ism, then that is the way that it becomes a mudaf. Because an idafa is what? Noun conjunction. Right? It's just that what's confusing is that this is simultaneously doing several things. We're used to the, for instance, we're used to this simple kind of idafa, right? Kitab al-Imam, the Imam's book, right? Where there ain't really much going on here, and this is just a nominative sentence. This is the subject, right? The Imam's book, right? But in athna'a, we said what is the main thing? It's going to tell us about where in time the action is occurring. So it is simultaneously talking about action, but is also doing the thing of nouns. So it's almost, that's why it's called, in English, that's why we call it an adverb. An adjective is what kind of, in Arabic, the sifa is what kind of word of our major food groups? Ism, right? So that's how it becomes mudaf. But it is also not a verb in the purest sense, but is an adjective of the verb, describing where in time the action is occurring, right? So that's why it doesn't need, right? In some ways, this fatha here in like ba'da, khalfa, amama, athna'a, there is action. Where there is action impacting, there's a fatha. That's why the direct object, right? Like, so I want us eventually to get a way of thinking fatha is always, right? Always about action, but for now, right? Rather, eventually I want to think about this is what? Nasab, mansoob, right? That's really what we want to get to, but I'm just trying not to overwhelm you with too much grammatical terminology. So it is doing several things at once. It is a noun, and therefore it can do noun things, which can be what? Mudaf. But it is also playing around with this verb, because the verb in the beginning, what? Amara. Amara al-Qā'id. The leader gave a command, but we want to know, well, when and where did this command take place? So we're given a dharf zaman to let us know when it took place. During the war. So in that case, it's going to be impacted by that action, and so it is in the mahal of nasab. It's going to be in the mansoob state. And then, because it is still an ism and is mudaf, the word al-harb that comes after is going to be its mudaf ilayhi. It's going to be, right, and has to obey all those rules, so it's going to take a kasra. All right, Rami. Anisa. Mm-hmm. What's tifl? Very good. A child, a baby. B, just like B himaya, now we have B, again, harf jar. B wujudi. Hikmah. Wali. Wali. Dehi. Walidehi. Very good. So our vowelization is anisa. We said on the there's three different vowelizations for the fa'ala form. Fa'ala, fa'ula, fa'ila. So we have like darasa, kabura, like kabura, to get big, and things like anisa and hamida. Anisa and hamida, they have a kasra in the middle. Okay.
And that's just because the word, there's nothing.
Yeah, that's it. Just, yep. And now, so we have our verb. Who's doing the action of anisa? The child. So if it's the fa'il, what's the i'rab? Right, at-tiflu. What is the meaning of anisa? Right, to be comforted. Very good, to be comforted. So, anisa al-tiflu, bi wujudi. Bi harf jar. ما معنى وجود? Have you ever heard of the word موجود? No, that's wajh. Mawjuh or mawjud. But yeah, mawjud, you said what, ruh?
To be present.
Right. To be present or to exist. Also, yeah, so in the case of, really also could mean presence, right? Because we're working with a noun, right? So, anisa means to be comforted. Who's doing the action of being comforted? At-tifl. So anisa at-tiflu bi wujudi. Bi wujudi, not bi wujudin. So, what is this whole long statement?
It's idafa again.
Yeah, this is one long idafa. For extra credit that I have no reward for, how many terms are there in this idafa? Let's first stop. ما هو المضاف? ما هو mudaf. No. The tifl is not part of the idafa. The tifl is the fa'il. Right, so we have B, that's its own thing. Wujud hikma walidayhi. Right? So the mudaf is going to be what? Wujud. Right? Wujud. But it's going to be majroor because of the ba, of the harf ba. So it's going to be what? Wujud. D. Always the first term, always the mudaf is what? One vowel. Right? However, this one is not hikmatin. It's going to be also the ma huwa al-mudafu ilayhi what's the first mudaf? Ilayhi? If this is mudaf, this has got to be what? And what is this word? Hikmah, right? Exactly, hikmati. So, hikmah, and it becomes hikmati. Now, if this were an indefinite idafa, and let's say it ended here, and this word was not, then of course it could be what? Bi wujudi hikmatin. By the presence of a wisdom, doesn't make any sense, right? So it has to be the presence of the wisdom of something or someone. So therefore, it's also going to continue to have one vowel. Bi wujudi hikmati. Now, what's the next mudaf? Ilayhi. Right. However, we have our word walidayhi, but the word walidayhi is actually a conjunction itself. What is it broken up into?
Waliday.
So walidayhi is a conjunction of walidan. What is walidan? No, walid is a boy. Walid is a father, right? So the son is walid, right? So the ibn is the walid. Walid. The Abu is the walid. Lam yalid walam yulad. Lam yalid. So walida in the present tense becomes yalida. But to negate it, we say yalid. Allah Ta'ala was not yalid. He was not what? In plain English. He wasn't nobody's son. Right? Canceling out the claim of both the mushrikeen and the Nasara. Allah Ta'ala is nobody's son. So, lam yalid from walid. But walada becomes walam yulad. Yulad. Walada as a verb means to what? To have a son. Walam yulad. And Allah Ta'ala didn't have any children. Lam yalid, he was nobody's son. Walam yulad, nobody is his son. Right? So, walid and walid. So the walid is the father, the walid is the son. Walidan, so the word walidani, muthanna. Muthanna is what? Dual. So there's two ways we can do the dual. We have walidani and walidaini. Walidaini, where the alif in between becomes a ya, always maintaining, right, the sukun, and then both the noons on the end with a kasra. That's how you always do, right? If you have the word, for instance, kitab. What if I want to say two books? We said what? You add what to it? What's the first letter that's added here to walid? What's the next letter? What are the vowels? What do we get? Kitabani. Kitabani. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. Right? فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبُّ الْمَشْرِقَيْنِ وَرَبُّ الْمَغْرِبَيْنِ. Right? Mashriq. What's mashriq? What's maghrib? Not the prayer, but also the west. Because where does the sun set? It sets in the west. So the mashriq is what? The east. But Allah Ta'ala is the Lord of both easts and both wests. So He is Rabb, Rabbu, because it's mudaf, al-mash. Ready? Qaini. Right? So in the subject, it is walidani. When it is either majroor or mansoob, it is either possessed, or if it is the direct object, then it gets the ya. So the alif noon becomes a ya noon. Always the noon taking the kasra for the muthanna, always for the dual. So it's very easy in Arabic to make a dual out of anything, right? Rajul, rajulani, rajulaini, two men. Imra'atun, a woman. Imra'atani, imra'ataini, two women, right? Dars, darsani, darsaini, a lesson, two lessons. Kitab, kitabani, kitabaini, right? So always, that's right. Rabbul Mashriqaini wal Maghribaini. Allah Ta'ala is the Lord of the Mashriqain and the Maghribain. Why Ain versus Mashriqani? Because mudaf ilay. What is the hukm of mudaf ilay? Majroor. That's the rule, that's the qaida for the mudaf ilay. So, in our sentence, Anisa tafru bi wujudi hikmati walidayhi. So that's why there are technically 4 terms in our. We have mudaf, and then we have what? Thalathatu madaif ilay. We have 3 mudaf ilays, because we're going to take walidan, it becomes majroor to walidaini, but to add the hu, which is for huwa, his father, we're going to drop the final noon and replace it with our pronoun suffix. So walidaini becomes walidayhi. Walidayhi. أنس الطفل بوجود حكمة والديه. What's the meaning here? أنس الطفل, the child was comforted by what? بوجود حكمة والديه. بوجود, wujud we said means what? The presence of what? The presence of what's the next word? Hikmah. The presence of the wisdom. Wisdom of what or who? Of his parents. Of the two, right? Because walid can mean either a father in the specific or in the generic or in the general. It can mean a parent. So the child is comforted by the presence of the wisdom of his parents. Right? Anisa tufru bi wujudi hikmati walidayhi. All right. Number 4, Ishaq. جاء الضيف. Not al, but الضيف. Dad is what? حرف شمسي. Yep. جاء ضيف. ضي, there's a sukoon on the yeah, so ضي. ضيف, right? جاء means what? What's the meaning of the فعل جاء? ما معنى فعل جاء? To come. Who came? No, that's ضعيف. Right? That's good though, right? So we have the word ضيف and ضعيف. One of these means weak. The weakness came? It'd be kind of weird, right? I mean, that sounds like a great way to start a rap battle. You know, if you wanted to really diss somebody, جاء الضعيف وأنا الشريف. So جاء الضيف. ضيف is what? ضيف is so إذا زرنا على الكعبة, if we visit the Kaaba, أصبحنا ما? What do we become? When we're at the Kaaba. ما هي الكعبة عند الله? What is the Kaaba to Allah? Kaaba بيت الله. فنحن, we are what when we are there?
Yes.
We're the guests of Ar-Rahman. So in Arabic, we like to say this. When we go to the Kaaba, نحن ضيوف Ar-Rahman. ضيوف جمع ضيف. We are the guests of the Most Merciful when we go to His house. Azza wa Jal. جاء الضيف. So the guest came, but where did he come? Ila. Continue. Very good. Rifqi. Yep. Manzil. 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 Let's look up footnote number 7. ما معنى منزل? Come on, say it now. يعني, there you go. يعني بيت. So ما معنى منزل? هو بيت. So give me the translation. Ishaq? You got it, man. You. What does ja'a mean?
To come.
Who came?
The guests.
Ad-daif, the guests.
The guests came
to the rifq. ما معنى الرفق? So, in the Risala, Ibn Abi Zayd mentions that Allah Ta'ala brings us in the world into His rifq, into His care and custodianship, and provides for us. Rifq also means like tenderness, you know, like shafaqa and rafaqa, and, right? So tenderness, care. So hospitality, exactly, right? So جاء ضيف إلى رفق المنزل. The guest came to the hospitality of the manzil. جاء ضيف إلى رفق المنزل. The guest came to or for, right, to partake in the rifq al-manzili, in the hospitality of the house. Okay, Dawood, last one.
had, al-Falā,
Hadda, because it's a verb, right? Hadda.
hadda, oh,
We said what? Hadda means what? Tilka hudud Allah. These are the what? When we say tilka hudud Allah, what do we mean? Or if a person commits a crime and they get a had, or we say hudud, but really a had, because they did what? They crossed a line, right? Right. So the had means to limit or to impose a boundary, right?
but this is hadda,
So hadda is a verb which means to limit or impose a boundary. So,
hadda,
right?
al-Falā, rizqa, rizq,
Al-fallah, right? Just look at al-fallahu. ما هو الفلاح؟
Allahu, rizqa, or rizq, rizqa,
Yeah, exactly. رزقه. Very good.
rizqa,
رز
rizqahu min al-haql,
من الحقل,
no, haql,
right? من That's all I do at home is sit around and drum up crazy sentences to trick you up.
isbab,
Be,
bi,
you know the word. Take off the first be, and you already know this word. You use it all the time.
sabab,
There you go. So be,
bi sabab,
be saba. If it's harf jar, be, because harf jar is going to be majroor, kasra. So be sababi.
yeah, that was
Yeah, it's a little tongue twister, right? So be sababi, sabab, the sabab of what? What's the last word?
Last word? Hold on now.
Al-Qaht. Very good. Al-Qaht.
Oh, this sign.
I mean, you could say Al-Qahti, that is true, right? Because be sabab Al-Qaht, it's an idafa, just like before, right? So here's another case where we have idafa and what we have harf jar. So the be causes this ba to take a be sababi, and al-qah is going to be qahti because it is mudaf ilay. So min also harf jar. So binal, and then the word haql is going to be what? Haqq li. Hadda is our verb. Al-fallahu is our fa'al. Al-fallahu is the actor in the sentence. What is ma ma'ana al-fallah? What's a fallah? Not tufah, but fallah. That's falah without a shadda. Fallah is a farmer. So, what is rizq? Okay, but if when we're talking about the rizq of Allah, provision, bring it down out of the clouds, so to speak. If we're talking about a farmer and he's doing the act of limiting, hadda al-fallahu rizqahu. The rizq is receiving his what?
Like his garden or his
Well, what does a farmer do? His crop, his harvest, his haul, his, whatever, right? So, حَدَّ الْفَلَّاحُ رِزْقَاهُ. It's not رِزْقُهُ or رِزْقِهِ. It's رِزْقَاهُ because the rizq is receiving the act of the hadda. Right? And whose rizq is it? The farmer. Is it mudhakkar or mu'annath? Is it a male or female farmer?
Oh, it's a man.
It's a man because we don't see any sign of femininity. So therefore, the pronoun on rizq, if it has to be his rizq, has got to be what? We don't say rizq huwa, we say what? Rizquhu. But in this case, it is the maf'ul bihi. It's receiving the action of hadda, so it's rizqahu. That's why there's a fatha on the qaf. Min al-haqli. What's the haql? What's the haql? If we look at our footnote number 8, it says what? Kunna aktharul ansari haqlan. In this hadith, found in Sahih Muslim, one of the companions were saying, we were the greatest or the biggest out of the Ansar, haqlan. What is a haql? Land. Yani ard. Ard, land. So like when it comes to agriculture, like how many acres you have, your acreage, we will call this in Arabic, haql. Okay. Right? So, hadda al-fallahu rizqahu min al-haql. The farmer limited his rizq from his haql, from his land. But why? بِسَبَبِ الْقَحْطِ. بِسَبَبِ الْقَحْطِ. Because, right, what's the sabab? What's the reason? What's the qaht? Qaht is a drought. Is a drought.
And again, the sukoon is there just because that's part of it.
Yes. And then number 6, I'll do really quick, and then we'll have a few minutes for QA. حفظ العالم. حفظ العالم. Yes, sir.
So the sabab is that because?
Exactly. You can translate. What's the sabab? Asbab al-nuzul. What's asbab al-nuzul?
It's the reason for that.
Right. Or actually, asbab is jama' of sabab. So it's the
Reasons.
exactly right. So asbab jama' sabab. Sabab al-mufrad wal asbab al-jama'. So we all know, like when you study, there's a certain field of tafsir that's called the asbab al-nuzul, the reasons why ayat were revealed or what situation they were dealing with. Right? We call this asbab al-nuzul. So the sabab is the reason for a thing. B is the harf that's employed to ask the question or to state the reason, right? So, hadda al-falahu rizqahu. The farmer limited his crop or his haul or his harvest, right? Min al-haql, from his land, bisabab al-qaht. Because there was a drought. There was a reduced harvest, so he had a limited harvest. Bisabab al-qaht. Right, because of the drought. Right, بسبب القحط. حافظ العالم آثار الحضارات القديمة في الكتب. حفظ هو فعلنا. حفظ is our verb. What does again حفظ mean? Protect, preserve, something akin to there. Okay, تمام. Who's doing من قام على الفعل حفظ? Who is doing the act of حفظ? al-ʿalim. Going back to our discussion briefly earlier, we had the ism. fa'il and the ism maf'ul. Ism fa'il is what? Active. Ism maf'ul is what? Passive. Ism fa'il is the alim. Alim. Right? وَجَمْعُ عَالِمْ عُلَمَاء. Tamam. A scholar is one who knows. Right? Knows. He has the act of knowing. He's doing the action of alima. Now, actually, technically, this is ism fa'il. Yeah. And then you get to what? The ism maf'ul is going to be the same looking thing, but this time, what are we going to do with our lamb? Well, both of these are this. Alimun, alamun. Right? What's the difference between an alim and an alam? What's an alam? This is a person that knows. This is receiving the action of knowing. To be known. So what are some words in Arabic or some things in Arabic that we use the word alam for? I'll give you a hint. One of them is in Surah Al-Fatiha, and you say it every day, several times a day, but it's just as a plural. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Alameen, Alam. What's the ala mean? Right? So likewise, this form of fa'il and fa'al can both take a jama' sahih. They both can take a sound plural. So if I want to say scholars, I can say alamun or ulama. And you'll notice, we will learn that sometimes words in Arabic could have multiple plurals. And they can have slightly different meanings, but sometimes they can have a sound. Like in the case of alimuna, that would be a sound plural of alim. But ulama is jama' taqsir. This would be a broken plural because it's broken up, right? Whereas fa'al becomes alam, world, al-alam. That's why, like we say, for instance, طوال القرن كان حربا في العالم العربي. During the last century, there has been war in the Arab world. Al-alam, al-Arabi, in the Arab world. Fil-alam, fil-alami al-Arabi, in the Arab world, right? So the word alam, we can use to mean a world. It can also, because the idea is what? It's what's known. It's just sitting there and it's passively known, right? Also, because I like to do this is the somewhat deeper meaning that you get by Allah Ta'ala being Rabbul Alameen. Number one, what does Rabb mean? Okay, but what does that mean? What does a Lord do? No, I mean, sure, but do they just have the title and deed and that's it? The second one, they take care. Allah Ta'ala, when He refers to mankind in general, He may say, wa ilahukum wa ilahun wahid. Your God is one. But when Allah Ta'ala addresses the Prophet, how does He address Himself in relation to the Prophet? Exactly, right? وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. When revelation stopped for a period of time, the Prophet ﷺ became very despondent. Maybe I did something to displease Allah, and revelation stopped. And so the Quraysh used this as an opportunity to antagonize him. Your Lord is angry at you. See, you're changing things and you're changing religion. Allah stopped the revelation to you because He's displeased with you. مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. Your Lord is neither angry or displeased with you. He didn't say ilahuka, He said rabbuka. When Allah Ta'ala addresses the Prophet ﷺ and the other Anbiya, He addresses them as their Lord. Yes, He is above them. He is lording above everything and everyone, including the Rusul and the Anbiya, but He also addresses him with rifq. He addresses him with tenderness and respect, and He cares. So Allah Ta'ala, when Allah says that He is the caretaker and the provider of the alameen, nobody is outside of Allah Ta'ala's care. Everything in existence is known. Everything in existence is an alam to Allah. Because huwa bi kulli shay'in alim. Right? Allah is aware of everything. Fa kullu shay'in lahu alam. Everything therefore is known to Him. And His relationship to those things, He says foundationally, Rabbul Alameen. And for that, He begins with Alhamd, Thana ala nafsihi. Allah praises Himself. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Praise is to the one that is in complete knowledge of everything and tends to it and cares to it, and therefore that alone is worthy of infinite, never-ending, all-encompassing praise. That's some of the deeper meaning of alam, the ism maf'ul. But right now we're dealing with this dude that's teaching. حفظ العالم آثارا. آثار. آثار جمع of what? أثر. What's an athar? Not atar. We know what that is. But athar is just like a remnant and something left over, right? So athar, right, means to impact something or to affect something. It can also mean the remnants of something, right? So like if you go to Spain, you'll see the athar of the Andalusian Muslims there. You'll see the remnants of Islamic civilization in Andalus, right? So this is what we call athar, right? So حفظ العالم آثارا. It's receiving the action of being preserved. The alim is doing the action of preserving. What is the scholar preserving? The ruins or the remains of what? Al-Hadarat, which is just the jama' of hadara with a ta'un marbuta. Hadara is the singular, hadarat is the plural. This is a sound female plural. What is hadara or hadarat? Civilization. So in this case, civilizations. So the scholar is preserving the civilizations, but what kinds of civilizations are they? Right, al-Qadima. Now notice, we have hadarat, but we have Qadima. Why not Qadimat? There's a rule in Arabic. When you have shay'un, shay'un mu'annath, you have a thing. And I do mean here, shay'un mu'annath, a thing that is feminine. Then, in the plural, its sifa is going to be mufrad. Its adjective is singular. Still has to match the gender, but its adjective will always be singular. But in the case of a shakhs, in the case of a person, like a human being, then it can be plural. So for instance, kitab, what is the plural of kitab? Kutub. If I wanted to say a lot of books, let's say what kutub kathira, right? Kutub is the plural of kitab, and when it becomes a broken plural, it becomes feminine. So kutub becomes feminine, but then, right, kathira is singular. Still feminine, right? Whereas muslima becomes muslimat. And then if you said right, for the singular, jamila, and then right, jamilat. Because a Muslim is a human being, right? You don't have to, you'll get it as you go, but it's just kind of a weird thing. In Arabic, when you have inanimate objects and they, in their plural form, take a broken plural, then their adjective becomes feminine singular, right? So kitab as a singular noun is masculine. So if I want to say a big book, I would say what? Kitab kabir. But if I want to say big books, I would say kutub kabira, right? Because the plural of kitab is a broken plural. But in the case where we have, for instance, hadara is in its singular form feminine, and it takes a sound feminine plural just by adding the at to it. So hadarat. But if I want to describe that, whether in the singular or in the plural, it's always going to be qadima. So hadara qadima and hadarat qadima, right? Ancient civilization, ancient civilizations. Even in English, right, we don't say ancient civilizations, right? So ancient civilization, ancient civilizations, right? So, حافظ العالم آثار الحضارة القديمة في الكتب. So the scholar is preserving the remains of the ancient civilizations in books. And so all of these have the footnotes. There's likewise a section here where you'll also go through for the marfu', the mudari', you'll go through for the present tense. So if you turn the page and just look under jumul al-amthara al-mudari'iyya al-ula, right, you have like ya'anasu al-mu'minu bi ni'matin min rabbihi. So I just give you, right, doing the same thing, some example sentences, but this time where the verb will be in the present tense. And if it's enough for this week, by all means, just go ahead and stick with the past tense ones. If you have questions about how to conjugate the present tense ones and you're having trouble with, with that, obviously just hit me up on the Discord or whatnot, and I can help you with those conjugations. But I wanted to create lots of little examples like this, because if you go through this and then go back to your risala, inshallah, it will definitely help you, because now you will see a lot of those. That's why there's 10 verbs, right, and 10 nouns. Even though there's more than that in the risala, you go back and read it this time after going through this worksheet, some things will begin to stand out to you and become more familiar. And that's basically the technique that I recommend for gaining competency and literacy is by doing this kind of exact repetitive act. Any questions?
Yeah, I got a question. What was the a plural sound? I know the endings, but or broken. What was? Why do you gotta call it sound? What was the reasoning? Something sound. I know
So
the ending.
when we say sound, right? So in Arabic, there's two ways to do sound endings. There's a sound masculine ending and a sound feminine ending, right? So the sound masculine ending is adding the una or the ina onto the end. So Muslim, Muslimuna, Muslimina, Mu'minun, wa mu'minin, that kind of thing, right? And so for the feminine, it is simply adding the alif and ta onto a feminine word that allows a feminine plural. So like muslimatun, like a single Muslim, right? Female Muslim will become muslimat and mu'minat, right? That's how you add. Now, the real question is, how do I know when a word can take a sound plural and when does it have to take a broken plural? That is what we'll learn as we go. So for instance, you can't just say kitab and kitabat or kitab and kitabuna. This doesn't work. You have to say kitab and kutub. Or like Rasul does not become Rasuluna or Rasulina. It becomes Rasul to Rusul. And Nabiyun, right, can actually take both. Like I said, sometimes you will have multiple plurals. So like you take the word Nabi. You can have Nabiyuna and Nabiina, and you can also have Anbiya. And the Quran uses actually both of those. So, what is the magic sauce to knowing when? There isn't one. It's just through experience of reading of when you'll know either what kind of word can take a sound plural, or when is it permissible that you can use one or both.
Yeah, no, my question really was to focus on why do they call it sound? What's so sound about it?
The reason why they call it sound, and I'll demonstrate here. I'll show you why they call it sound versus broken. Right? So you have the form. Let's just take the word. Let's take the word muhsin. Right. Muhsin. So, to make muhsin a plural, I can retain the entire form, right? This is the singular, and we'll go over here to the plural. I can take this entire form and keep it sound or whole, because I think maybe it's just the words that they're using to, right? Because when we say something is sound, we don't mean like it makes a sound. We mean like it's structurally whole, right? So that's what it is. So when I want to make a plural out of muhsin, I can maintain the entire structure of the word as is, right? Muhsin. And all I have to do is either add my waw and my noon, or my ya and my noon, right? So muhsinuna, muhsinina. So the word muhsin is preserved, structurally sound, and does not change in any way and form, but rather things are just merely added as an addition to it, right? Where if you take, for instance, the word rasul, right? In order to make it into its plural, I have to drop the waw. And also, not only do I drop the waw out of it, but I'm also going to change the voweling. Here we have rasul, and in the plural becomes rusul, right? So it no longer maintains its structural integrity. That's why. Yes.
So for broken plurals, just like when we made kitab, kutub, we added dhamma on the first two parts. Is this
Or replaced or whatnot. I mean, this is, right? So I know where you're going, right? So if you take, for instance, we have kitab and kutub, right? The question is, we have, looks like if we use our template of fa, ayn, and lam, it looks like we get this form of fu'al, right? Well, if you see a word that has this form of fu'al, then generally speaking, this is going to be a form of jama'. Now, how do you know that a word can take that form for its plural versus another one? Experience. It's not purely formulaic that it can do that, right? There's no pure formula for knowing that. But nonetheless, if you see a word that has a fu'ul, now of course you say, well, I don't know what the tashkil is. Again, that eventually will come in time where you will see it. So for instance, suhuf. The word suhuf. Where does this word occur in the Quran? صحف إبراهيم وموسى سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى. Right? We know Surah al-A'la, right? And then you get to the end of it, we get what? صحف إبراهيم وموسى. Right? So what is the singular? Right? This is where the forms. I put my pen down. Here it is. So this is where knowing the forms eventually will help you. You're not there yet, but I'll just give you a quick demonstration. There is a common form of fa'ilatun. Fa'ila. There's a common form of fa'ila. Many words take this form. Let's use our example here. We have thawd, ha, and fa. So we get sahifatun, right? Sahifa. Fa'ila as a form, one of its common and acceptable plurals is going to be fu'al. Now, you haven't got there yet, but it's well known that fa'ila is going to take a plural form of fu'al, right? Now, there are other forms, right? You have the form of fa'ul. You have the other form of fi'al. That can also take the form of fu'al. So, fa'ila can take fu'al. What do we get? We get suhuf. If we get fa'ul, what is a word that takes the form of fa'ul? Rasul. What do we say we get? Rusul. Fi'al, kitab. What do we say it also takes? Right? How do you know? Practice, reading, experience, exposure to lots of things, and over time, the forms will start to develop patterns to you. But it just takes time, because right now, some of you are still struggling. Is that a ya or a ta? Is this a dhamma or a fatha? Is this a direct object? Is this right? So you're still early on in your journey where some of those base mechanics are getting in the way of your higher functioning. Once those become more familiar to you, they will go into like background processes. I mean, when I read a book, I mean, I still have to know what a noun and a verb and all that is, but it's no longer like an upfront process that's draining all my resources. You know, why is my computer crawling, right? Why is my brain crawling? Why is this word crawling on my tongue, right? Because you're still at that point in the process. But as you routinely read and study and get exposure to this, you will begin to move some of those to background processes, and you'll do the more higher functioning and trust me, there's functions even, you know, higher than that, but they will go and you'll just say, suhuf, kutub, rusul. They'll stand out to you like that, and you'll begin to connect the dots, as they say.
What is that like? Maybe 2-3 weeks from now?
Next Friday, inshallah. Next Friday. Otherwise, hudud. Nothing motivates like pain and amputation. Yeah, no, exactly. No, you want to pay up. I mean, I'll get you there by Tuesday morning. I'll get you there by Tuesday, Wednesday morning at the latest. Any other thoughts, questions? Inshallah. So obviously, alhamdulillah, I've recorded the session. It'll be up for you to review on YouTube and on the website. And hit me up throughout the week if you have any questions. Hopefully these will be, like I said, the second one particularly about Dharf Zaman and Makan is really meant to just be a supplement. You don't have to like rack your brain. I'd say the things that you want to really try to work over the most over the next week is go back and read the Risala again. Try to continue to familiarize yourself with its vocab, and then work with this sheet that will help you see some of that same content in a different context. And then by either the middle or next week when we meet, I'll basically have, right, a thaniya. I'll have the second version of this, and we'll do basically the exact same thing, take another 10 verbs and another 10 nouns and spin them in sentences again so you can see them in different contexts. And so reading the Risala along with these in context, if you can spare twice a week, 15, 20 minutes to go through, inshallah, this is what will help to increase just getting the exposure to it and help to build up, inshallah, some of that muscle memory. وصلوات الله تعالى على النبي الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم زدنا علما واجعلنا من الصالحين والحمد لله رب العالمين. وإياكم.
We'll make salah.
Yes, please.